What's up, Austin? I hope you guys enjoyed the animated GIF parade with the remixed Miley Cyrus. Most of the time, people are really confused by that, but I like it. I like it because it is random, just like the wonderful thing that is the internet. Now, I have been on a bus for the last 5 months, going all over the country. This is stop number 198 on this tour for internet entrepreneurship. You'll notice this talk has a hashtag. Has a very nice hashtag. You see that WTP book? Feel free to use it. Take out your mobile devices. Take out your laptops. Even if you just want to ignore me and read Reddit, that's fine. I probably deserve it. Actually, wait, how many of you, by show of hands, are Redditors? Yes! Upvote, 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 upvote. You guys have also identified yourselves as the least productive people here at South by Southwest. So there's that. So thank you. Thank you for that. Really, because it would be nothing without all of you. If there's anything I've learned, it's that. And, well, one other thing. You see, I love mascots. I can't help it. I do. And everywhere I go, I'm spreading the word, not only really about the book, but about this message, about the fact that I want everyone everywhere to realize, also, these books are not to scale. That would be terrifying. I want people to realize this is the time to get started. It's the thing I wish I had heard when I was in school 8 years ago. So I went to 77 universities spreading the word, and I tell you, it's happening, right? I don't actually speak French, okay? But entrepreneurship should mean something like having ideas and doing them. They're not just special people and there's everyone else. It's what the internet enables, right? That's the power of it. If you want to learn something, if you want to share something, those ideas can now travel freely. And I was a college student once. That was me, taking a selfie back in 2005 with my buddy Jack. On graduation day, I didn't have a fucking clue what I was going to do with my life. And luckily, things have been working out okay. But this is the message I want every college student to know. It's going to be okay. Life is not some paint by number. And you could actually make a living starting companies with cute mascots. The Reddit alien actually happened because I was bored in marketing class my senior year at UVA. I was just doodling in the margins, wahoo wah. And I went home and in a cracked copy of Paint Shop Pro 5, yeah, true story, recreated it and I said, we're going to have a mascot. This is it. We still had to work out some other things, but I love mascots. I don't know why, I just do. Mostly because you get to make costumes out of them. You see, if you have a mascot and have a costume, as you can see the chipmunk, you can get away with anything. All right, that is Times Square, and that is a sword swallower being arrested. And the reason is the NYPD sees a dude with swords, and they're like, where's your permit? But they see a chipmunk, and they're like, keep dancing. Looking good, chipmunk. Really, you can get away with anything. So many of you have startups. Hopefully a lot of them have mascots. Hopefully you'll make a costume for them. But I'm not talking about costumes or mascots. I wish I were, but I'm not. I'm talking about the world. The world, it is big. It is full of people, mostly water. And despite what you might have heard from some people with very compelling facial hair, it is not flat. Sorry, Tom. It's not true. We know that. Come on, the ancient Greeks knew that. Every one of us knows, no, it's not. But what is true is the World Wide Web is, right? As long as all bits are created equal, and that's a big as long as, right? Because net neutrality is threatened every day, and especially most recently with a federal court ruling, right? All bits need to be created equal for this to be the world's largest stage and library in one. But if we get it right, that's power. You know what I'm talking about, right? Oh, yes. This is actually a terrible way to play video games. So we can stretch this metaphor a bit, but hear me out, all right? I got my first taste of it as a teenager. I was lucky enough, my parents didn't know a lot about technology. They didn't have a ton of money to be spending, but they got me a computer, a 486 SX. They put it in my room. I wish they'd got me the DX, but it's fine. I wasn't going to complain because it changed my life. A few years later, they got me an internet connection, a 33.6 Zoom. Yeah, you had to listen to your internet get started back then, all right? But it changed my life because all of a sudden, I felt like a god among men. It's true. I may not have looked like one back then, but the point is, I felt powerful. Yes, that is 16-year-old Alexis. And look, there is a hipster somewhere making this look cool right now, all right? So before you get all laughy about it, that was me. And what I knew was I could now build websites that millions of people, tens of people could see, right? And it felt so powerful. You never forget your first. Mine was GeoCities. That's right, geocities.com/Silicon Valley/hills/4924. I trust many of you had a GeoCities website as well. This was amazing for me. Even though most of those hits were me hitting reload, I still felt pretty cool because my schoolwork seemed so irrelevant, but this seemed so powerful, right? Because I could go on message boards and I would reach out to nonprofits and I'd say, hey, you need a website. Let me build it for you. I'd do it for free because I wanted the pride. And it felt so great because these adults didn't know they were dealing with some dork in his parents' house. They were working with someone who had a skill they didn't have. And that made me feel great. That was a drug that I have not been able to shake ever since. And look, the incumbents, we know software is eating the world. But the incumbents, many of you, I think, are going after industries because they merely adopted the internet, right? No, I could do that better. I mean, you don't want to hear me do a Bane voice, but, well, okay, all right. They merely adopted the internet. We were born in it, molded by it. All right, so, thank you, guys. Thank you. Every South by talk should have at least one Bane impression. The point is, look, this is really easy to make fun of, so I'm going to keep doing it. Look, the incumbents, and you know who they are. You've all been there, right? What channel's in Netflix, right? House of Cards. Oh, so good. Orange is the New Black. But what channel, right? There's that disconnect because so many of us who are lucky enough to have access to this technology have a different level of fluency, right? Have a different level of ability. And what's so cool is, look, spoiler, ideas are worthless, right? We know this. Execution is everything. Building is everything. That's why I can't tell enough people to at least consider learning how to code. How many of you actually write code? Huzzah! Excellent. Congratulations, right? The most valuable skill of this century. We can't get enough people realizing that right now, right? There's so much opportunity here because when you need only a laptop to change the world, you don't need to open a factory anymore. You just need to open a laptop. That's power. And we need more people getting it. And, look, there are lessons to be learned, all right? I lucked into this because my sophomore year at UVA, I walked out of an LSAT because I wanted to go to Waffle House. I don't know, hopefully some of you guys are familiar with that. It is an amazing place, good for waffles and epiphanies. And that is where I realized I did not want to be an immigration lawyer, and instead I wanted to try to start something with my best friend, and hopefully we could live like college students forever. And that was Steve, and we were gonna eliminate lines. Okay, so in 2005, we wanted to make an app so that anyone could bypass a line. Instead of waiting, just place an order, show up and grab your drink and burger and go, right? We were gonna call it My Mobile Menu, or which we can workshop that. But look, we were gonna change the world with this thing, and I talked Steve out of his software job. We were gonna build it together. And then we heard about Y Combinator. This was now our senior year. We had heard Paul give a talk. A month later, Paul Graham announced it. We thought, this is perfect. This is just for us. And so we applied. We went up, we interviewed, and we killed it. Whew. Oh man, best interview of my life. We went out that night to celebrate, drinks, food, everything. We got the call, and they said, you're rejected. And that sucked. The good news is, we were already drinking, right? So we could go from drinking in celebration to drinking in misery, which is what we did. And we were in Harvard Square, and so we bumped into a couple of Harvard students who were also out drinking, having a much better night because they had just gotten these great jobs at Lehman Brothers. Yeah, I don't know how that worked out for them, but they were buying everyone drinks, they were showboating, and you know what? In my drunkenness and insecurity, I said, well, my buddy and I are starting a company called and we just got into Y Combinator. And I felt like such a tool when that lie came out of my mouth. Because I just, in that moment, didn't know what to say. This is the first time I got participation trophies for 8 years in basketball camp, and I still can't dribble. All right, and this was the first time we really wanted something, and we were told, no, actually, no. And so the next morning, very hungover. Also, I know we're at South by. I know you guys have presumably been drinking. I just want to be clear, alcohol is not a solution, all right? Technically it is, but that's not what I meant. All right, so on a long train ride back, we got a phone call from Paul, and he said, listen, we still don't like your idea, but we like you guys. If you're willing to change your idea, we'll let you in. Build something on the web, not on a phone. Back then, the smartest phone was a BlackBerry. Too soon, I know. But he had a point, right? Build it in a browser, solve your problem every morning. And so Steve was an avid Slashdot reader. I was using this new technology called tabs every morning to open dozens of news websites. We thought, let's build something that solves that problem. And so there we are, the founders of Reddit on the first day of Y Combinator. That's it. That's class photo day, all right? Now you'll notice, oh man, we hadn't built anything yet, but I already had a t-shirt with our mascot on it. which I do not recommend. Let me be very clear. That is the wrong order of operations. Something else you may notice, Steve, now CTO of Hitmonk, still looks the exact same. Amazing. It's because he's a vampire. Yeah. And one other thing, and this is a subtle one. You wouldn't have been able to notice this just looking at this photo. With little image enhancement, you will see that there we were, the first day of Y Combinator, the founders of Reddit. And you know what? We had no fucking idea what we were doing at all. None. We had no clue. And I would argue to this day, I still don't. Most of the time, I still don't know what I'm doing. And here's the big secret. No one does. Anyone who fronts like they have it all figured out is either lying or delusional. Everyone is hacking it. Experience and expertise help tremendously, but no one has all the answers. Life is not a paint by number, and every great project that got started with some people who did not know what they were doing. So do not let that stop you, and do not let anyone who tries to make you think that, oh, no, of course, this was part of the grand plan to do such and such and so and so. It's bullshit, all right? Please spread that message. Really, it's okay, because you can figure it out. That's where you get started. And so this is an opportunity, right? This is us just getting started with something new, and that's it. That's the first version of Reddit. That was 3 weeks later. We put it out to the world. You'll notice the first link was a submission I made to the Downing Street memo. And if you look closely, you'll see right there, I have -1 karma. That is because Steve is a dick. And he downvoted the first ever submission to Reddit by his best friend and co-founder. And it was just us. Like, I knew it was just in the room. I was like, really? Really? Hadn't told anyone yet, but yeah. All right, that's it. It's not going to win any design awards, I know. It still won't, but it's Spartan. This is it. This is our first web app. All right, and I should have never chosen Verdana. That is something that I bear. But look, everything looks janky when it gets started. That's the first Facebook. Do you guys remember this? Janky. Brace yourselves. First Twitter. What? Just showing this in public is going to take that stock price down another 8%. This is publicly traded now, but that's how it got started. Listen, people, the first version of everything is janky, all right? Come on, minimum viable product. Before that was a catchphrase. It was just called janky. The first Iron Man was janky. Do you remember that thing, Tony Stark's Mark I? Yes, it solved a problem. That's good enough. It's good enough for Tony. It should be good enough for the rest of us, all right? So that's fine. You get it out in the world, and then what? And then what? Next day, you have 112 million visitors, and you're the platform for online communities to share links and have discussions? No, it's years. It's years. Do not get caught up with what might be. Every day at Reddit was just this up and down of hopefully we'll get a little bigger. We wanted to make something for 50 people or 100 people, maybe 1,000 people. All these overnight success stories are anything but. They're anything but. There were struggles, there were mistakes, there were epic fails. There was a big competitor we didn't even know about. Oh man, I want to clear this one up because everyone always asked. So one, yes, 6 months before we launched Reddit, Dig was out in the world. They clearly knew how to use CSS, which we did not. They also had a lot of things going for them, right? They had a celebrity founder named Kevin Rose who announced the site on his TV show. He didn't mention it was his, but he announced the site on his TV show. They had a ton more traffic, a ton more momentum. They were in Silicon Valley. Ooh, right? Land of term sheets and unicorns. We were in Medford, or Medfa, which is a suburb of a suburb of a suburb of Boston, with 12 grand in the bank. Two dudes who just graduated from college who had no idea what they were doing, two nobodies, and we thought, shit, right? They seemed like everything that was right with startups. We were scared. Yeah, not even scared, I am talking next level scared, all right? But we had great advisors, we had great people around us, but I was still worried, and I'll tell you, this is the team-wide email I sent the day I found out about Dig. This was 2 weeks after we launched, Scout's Honor. This is screenshotted from my inbox. This is the email I sent to, Steve, the team. 2 weeks after we put that janky website online, we were so proud of it, I was scared. You can tell from the all caps, all right? But we had amazing advisors, people like Jessica Livingston, who said, do not care about your competition. Don't care about any of them. Any second you do is a second you're wasting not thinking about building something great. Your competition will not beat you. You will just beat yourself. Rather prophetic, huh? If you look at Dig and all the Dig clones and where they ended up, if only they'd had a Jessica Livingston in their lives, right? Look, the fact is every time it came up, and it came up a ton because I'd come to South Bys every single time. They'd ask, And every single time they'd ask, why are you guys even bothering? Why are you even trying? And I'll tell you, Jessica's voice just popped up and I was just like, you know what? No, not even gonna think, not gonna think about the competition. No, Grumpy, you think Grumpy Cat cares about the competition? I think Grumpy's here actually, I hope so. Here's what's amazing about her, all right? Grumpy Cat has more competition every day than we will all have our entire lives. Think about that, right? Grumpy has to be better than every cat on the internet. Do you think Grumpy wakes up worrying about the competition? No. Grumpy ain't got no time for that. Grumpy ran out of dams to give many years ago. Let Grumpy show you the way. Don't pay attention to your competition. Don't care for a minute. No, you know what though? You should notice though if they're doing something really, really dumb. That's what Adam Goldstein did when he was realizing, why are there 20 pages of search results on a flight? Who wants to take this flight? This is literally the worst flight you could take. It's on the 20th page. Who is clicking all the way through to be like, honey, I found it. Worst flight ever. Who does that? That's ridiculous. And here's the best part. They advertise having the technology. See, too many pages, use the filters to instantly narrow down the list. They have the technology and they won't use it because they want to show you more page views with more ads. And so that was the start of a whole new travel site, right? That started because the competition just sucked so much and cared so little that it was an opportunity, but don't get hung up on that. Figure out what the mistake is, figure out what they're not doing, create the products people actually want, and then take care of them. Take care of those users. This is a blog you've never heard of because it probably had 10 visitors all year in 2005, but 2 of them were me and Steve. That's because this TypePad blog by a guy named Andrew was the first person to ever write about Reddit. First guy ever. And you'll notice there are 2 comments right down there. If you look, Steve's giving him tech support in the comments of his blog. This guy, his blog are long gone. I have no idea who he is, but I remembered it. Like I said, you never forget your first. This guy was the first person to care. Only your mom is gonna care about what you've made because moms are amazing. But everyone else needs to be convinced. And Andrew's a hero. He's a hero of mine because he was the first person to care. And you know how I know this? This guy, this screenshot, this didn't happen 8 years ago. I took it a few months ago because using the Wayback Machine, I remembered enough about this random guy's blog to find it 8 years later. That's how much it meant to me. I still don't know who he is, but he was the first person to believe in us we didn't know, and it meant the world to us. Those are the people you care about. The ones you don't care about are the traditional ones, right? The ones we should care about, right? We gotta launch and be on the front page of such and such and so and so. TechCrunch didn't write about Reddit until the day we got acquired. That didn't stop us. And then when they started writing about us, they wrote amazing quotes like that. And I saved them. I loved them because they were so helpful. They were so motivating. Don't start your website for the appeal of some top-tier tech blog. Start your website for dudes like Andrew. Start it for people who will actually be using it, the ones who will actually be supporting you. They're the ones who you need to care about. They're wonderful, like waffles. Actually, this reminds me of another story. You see, this was 4 months into Reddit now. Things are going well. It's growing week over week. Steve and I get our first invitation to Silicon Valley. We'd never been before. We made a mix CD, Metallica mix CD. True story. We get on that plane from Boston. We go to the Valley because an executive at a company called Yahoo. You guys heard of Yahoo? Yeah. An executive there invited us out, and he said, we want to hear from you. We want to meet with you. I'm bringing my whole team. We've got candy on every floor. We'll give you some candy. Come have a meeting. We were thrilled. We show up at that office. We sit down, and everyone's amped. Steve and I look at each other. We start telling him about Reddit. He's like, tell us. We want to hear. So we get into it, and he cuts us off like a minute in. And he's just like, hold on. This is how he talked. Hold on. How much traffic do you guys have anyway? I looked at Steve, he looks at me, and we're like, well, we just launched a few months ago. It's growing week over week, probably 10 or 12,000 users. And he just laughs at us. You guys are a rounding error compared to Yahoo. What are you even doing here? Like, you invited us. Like, is that a thing you do at Yahoo? You just invite startups for candy and then shit on them? Like, that was weird. We'll go. We can go. It's fine. So we went home. It was not a very productive meeting. We went back to Boston. And the first thing I did was printed something out and put it on my wall next to my desk. And it said, you are a rounding error. I put it on my desk right next to that table where Steve and I worked because every morning I wanted to know exactly who Steve and I were proving wrong with Reddit. And it became my wall of negative reinforcement. I started adding TechCrunch posts to it. Any chance I could, I would add something to it. And my advice to you is this: listen, there are going to be constructive critics in your life who are amazing. They're the ones who make us better. They're the ones who keep it real. And then there are going to be haters. Haters going to hate, right? That's scientifically proven. Be the honey badger. Honey badger don't give a shit. No. Use it as motivation. Do not let it hold you back. Embrace it. Accept it and let it fuel you. Eat it for breakfast like waffles or whatever you want for breakfast. All right? Do not let that set you back, because every startup story is full of that. But it's also full of people who believe. And so when you visit 200 stops and 77 universities, you find entrepreneurship everywhere. These are a couple dudes from the University of Florida. Their beta version of the Spin Chill, which is an amazing device that through the laws of physics lets you chill a beer or any beverage almost instantly just by spinning it in some ice. You see, their first version was a power drill. And they realized, hey, we could actually make a product out of this. So they got started. They just started building. They're still in school. They're not at Stanford. They're at the University of Florida. And they're making a product people want. And they're selling it to the world using the internet, right? They're starting. You come away from 200 stops on the road all over this country and Canada, our hat to the north, and you will find entrepreneur after entrepreneur. That's been the joy of this trip, is this is happening everywhere. And there's no rule book for it. People are just doing it. This is Maya. I got to meet her in Atlanta. She is an amazing individual. 7 years ago, she started this site. She wanted to create eco-friendly fashion. So she started this up from her home. It started doing so well, she started a nonprofit to take some of the profits from that and invest them in people all over the world. And then it was doing so well, she ended up giving a TED Talk, spreading the word about what she's done. And what's so cool about Maya, I forgot to mention, is she's 14. So she's been doing this for a little while, and she makes us all feel like we wasted our adolescence. But she is the perfect example of what happens when the open internet can help someone reach their maximum potential for awesome. She just got started, and she has some amazing parents. She's got a lot of things going for her, an amazing, bright, talented woman. But she's got the chance now, thanks to the internet, to run an empire, to start it while she's still a teenager. And these are outliers. Oh, sure. They're all outliers. But the reality is that people are doing this stuff right now, and they're getting started in all walks of life. If software really is eating the world, it's not just the platforms that we're building. It's people using those platforms to be great. And no matter what, failure is an option, all right? Seriously, that baby is never going to get that spoon. No. It's sad, really. No. But look, I don't know why this secret, like, the reality is no, really, it's just never. Like, failure is an option because look, everyone starts out sucking, right? Sucking in a lot of ways, actually. Sucking is the first step to being sort of good at something, right? Adventure Time knows what's what. It's okay. It's okay to suck. You're going to try anything new. You're going to be bad at it. That's fine. There are no grades in this. It's about creating. It's about doing. It's about figuring it out along the way. And one of my favorite stories about this, one of my favorites, this dude, he failed out of the University of Georgia. He held a half dozen jobs from being a bond trader to working at Applebee's, and he failed all of them. Habitual failure. His friends and family were like, dude, you suck. Like, you got to figure something out. He said, I know. I've got a plan, though. I'm going to take pictures. They were like, you don't even have a camera. This is your worst plan yet. And he was like, no, I know, and I'm just going to do it. I'm going to move to New York, I'm going to take photos, and he does. And his friends and family were like, good luck, dude, good luck. He starts a Tumblr, he starts working at it, but he sucks. He's a terrible photographer, let's be clear. But he works at it, he obsesses over his craft, he starts finding inspiration online and off for his photography. And in a matter of years, in 3 years, that total failure becomes Humans of New York. Brandon Stanton, 3 years ago, was by all accounts a total failure, who had no business picking up a camera, let alone becoming one of the best photographers in the world. Millions of people see this dude's photos right now. He's a #1 New York Times bestseller like 100 times over. He's reaching his maximum potential for awesome, thanks to the internet. And this story, just like Maya's, just like Spin Chill's, just like my own, just like many of yours, could have never happened without an open internet. And that's what gets me so excited, is because there's so much potential, right? This cat knows what's what. That's how I feel, cat. It's not my cat, though. Don't tell my cat that I'm using another one's photo. But look, this is the opportunity, but none of it is guaranteed. None of it is. I want to be able to say, yay, internet, we got this, woo! That's not true. That's not true, because there are constant threats. Forget Sopa Pippa. The reality is today, at its core, right, we still have millions of Americans right now who don't have broadband internet. They're still using the same dial-up I was using in middle school because they live in rural America. We have millions of Americans who have to take their kids to McDonald's for free Wi-Fi because they can't afford it. If we believe every American should have a reasonable chance at electricity, shouldn't we believe they have a reasonable chance at internet? Right? We still have a ways to go. Oh. Well, but look, at the end of the day, it doesn't come down to one person on stage with a microphone, right? It comes down to all of us. And it's talking about protecting net neutrality. It means calling up the FCC. Don't let them be, all right? And let them know that this is an opportunity we cannot squander. Because yes, the gatekeepers are still there, and they're going to do everything they can to hold on to the last vestiges of broken industry. But with more access, with more skills to make the most out of that access, that's more power for individuals with great ideas. Whether they want to start a startup, whether they want to start an eco-friendly fashion line, whether they want to start an iOS app, or a thing that lets you chill your beers really fast. Like, that's all awesome, but it's all because of people being able to network and share those ideas and be great. And I've been lucky. Don't get me wrong, I've been lucky. That's why I'm sending this message as far and wide as I can. And if you've got insights, if you've got information, you want to join me in this movement, just email me, join@AlexisOhanian. And I'm also an ambassador for Y Combinator. So if you want a little heads up when applications are rolling around, feel free to email me there too. But hit me up on the Twitter, @AlexisOhanian. It's a little long and ethnic, but yay Armenians. All right? That's right, Badev. Oh yeah. Now look, here's the thing. So at 77 universities, I would do this talk, and then I would say, well, you know what? I wasn't a fill in the blank. You know, I went to UVA, so I'm not a whatever. But I've got one of your own. I found 77 alums at every single one of those universities who's gone on to do amazing stuff on the internet, and I interviewed them, kind of like Small Empires style, a little inside the actor studio, talking about their early days, because then they could look at them and think, well, they did it. They were in this classroom a year ago, 5 years ago. I could do it too. So in that tradition, I've got a little fireside chat. Now, it was a secret fireside guest. Keyword there being secret. Now, you see, most startups get summarized in that little TLDR that's like, yay, startups, it's great, huge success, all done, hooray, right? That's not true. That's not what happens. And so I'm really fortunate because not only do I have a co-founder of one of the hottest apps right now, but I have a co-founder who I've known through several companies. I invested in his first, I've invested in his most recent, but they weren't all huge successes. I want to talk about that because no one, I think, ever does. So my fireside guest tonight, The Secret, is the co-founder of Secret, Chris Baders. Can you guys clap it up for Chris? Bring him on stage. Chris, come on up here, man. Thank you, sir.
What's up, buddy?
Come on up here, man. Good to see you.
I have to tell you a secret.
Yeah, why? Tell me. Nice secret. All right.
Yeah. Hi.
All right. Guys, here's what I have to stress. There is no one way to do these startups, but I think the lessons learned, especially from yours, Chris, are particularly relevant and interesting because what feels like right now, hey, here's this app everyone's talking about, was anything but that certain. Because you've been at this for a while. So
yeah.
Can we take this all the way back to YC and a little startup called Fligo?
Sure, yeah. It's actually about 5 years ago now, maybe 6 years. A friend of mine actually had sold his video startup, and I thought it was really interesting how that panned out. So we decided to make another video startup together called Fligo, which ultimately was kind of creating a Ning or create your own kind of YouTube, essentially. And at the time, it was a really kind of rough market, right? It was 2008, and investors were being a little bit tighter. It was kind of like the apocalypse of the economy. So we actually had a really compelling product that was actually making money and had paying users, but it was actually really hard to actually close the money. And so what we ended up doing was kind of pivoting and looking at the trends, and we saw that there was a site called TwitPic, which you probably all know, and we saw that nobody was doing that for video, so we quickly took our technology and we built something called TwitVid, and we were the first platform to let you kind of share videos on Twitter. And that, at the time, was kind of more interesting to investors, and that actually led us to raising our first round, was quickly pivoting and demonstrating how fast we can execute and kind of riding on the buzz of Twitter.
All right, but surely there were times there, I mean, like,
oh yeah.
Can you talk about one of those like facepalm moments, whether it was with Fligo or TwitVid, when you were just like, really?
Well, one of the facepalm moments was with TwitVid, actually. When we launched, we got a domain called twitvid.io. And we hadn't closed funding yet, so we weren't able to afford the .com. And what happened was another well-funded startup bought the .com, and then 2 months later, they released the same exact site. So we were like this. We're just like, what do we do? So we ended up competing against our own traction, and ultimately we decided we had to rebrand, and that's when it became Vidly, vid.ly. And ultimately, so that was, I think, a really crucial, kind of critical moment where we had to decide that we can't compete against our own brand. And we ultimately lost a lot of users because they kept going over to twitvid.com. And so Vidly ultimately wasn't as successful, and which led to the next pivot. When we saw that, we started looking at the trends, right? Mobile was still really young at the time, and we saw that people started sharing more from their mobile devices, so we built a mobile app called Vidly as well, and we saw trends of people doing that more and more. So we started looking at the mobile space and recognized an opportunity of just creating a social network, which ended up being called Treehouse, which was for sharing photos and videos with your friends, and this was about 6 months before Instagram. So we actually launched Treehouse. We saw the Instagram beta, and we actually made another mistake there. We looked at the app, and we're like, this is exactly like ours. But the one thing we overlooked was the filters. And when they launched, they also had a different social model. So they made 2 different decisions, and they launched, and they blew up immediately, right? On the same, essentially the same idea, minus a few minor details. And that was kind of another facepalm moment when we realized that choosing the social model that we did, that means like connecting, how you connect with your friends on the platform. It was actually a limiting factor to the growth.
All right, but like, so, you know, founders pour everything emotionally into these companies.
Sure.
I mean, you're basically then getting like a sucker punch or a gut punch after both of these. Like, what is the motivation then to keep going? What's the motivation to do another one? Because that's got to be infuriating.
We just love building, so while it's kind of a roadblock, you know, we're always kind of like, we see miles ahead, and like there's a roadblock right here, so we're like, you know, looking around, how do we get around that? Because we're always kind of committed to kind of the end goal, which is building something that people want and that people love, and we see those hints every time that there is a failure, there's also some success, right? There's some insight that you can get from that failure that can help you make better decisions next time around.
But then what made you eventually decide, you know what, it's not going to work with Treehouse?
Yeah, so there are 2 really kind of big moments. One was deciding when Google approached us to acquire us, whether it was the right time. And the way that we made that decision was my co-founder and I felt like we had grown as much as we could individually and as a team as possible given the current circumstances, right? So we're like, how can we move forward to another opportunity where we can both grow and keep growing and getting better at what we do and learning more? So I thought a change of environment. I had never worked at a big company. A change of environment like that would be a great growing opportunity. So I ended up going to Google. And then at Google, again, for 2.5 years, deciding when to leave was, again, that other decision. So spending a lot of time at a big company, you learn a lot about having meetings and working with people in a meeting room, and that wasn't really like what inspired me. So it gets to the point where like, okay, I don't think I can grow anymore here. I think I've gotten everything I could out of this. Now it's time to get back to what I really love, which was building apps.
Well, and something good did come out of it though, because you met your co-founder.
Absolutely. So that's the other thing. The great thing about Google, granted, you know, there's a lot of bad karma around big companies that people like to talk about, but there's actually a lot of really talented people there, a lot of great people. I met my co-founder, David Baitow, there. I met my girlfriend there. I met a lot of great people, right? And that's one of the things that I take with me, and it was really, really valuable.
Well, so what's your advice for founders right now who feel like they still haven't had the traction they're seeking? Like we all want that traction, right? We all want to see that growth. What's your advice aside from coming to events like South by, which are wonderful, legitimate business expenses?
Yeah, we were definitely here with our startup, and it was like a networking opportunity. So for us, every time like we didn't see traction, like there's always some traction. Like you'll get some users, you'll get some people that are really excited about your product. And if you're not getting like thousands and thousands of users every day, spend that time with those users that actually love your product, and also listen to the people that didn't use your product and try and understand why, right? Because everything you put out there, someone is eventually inevitably going to use, but the question is whether it's going to be useful to thousands or millions of people. So take those insights and be honest with yourself about what works and what doesn't. Don't be insecure about it. We all fail, right? We all make mistakes, and it's those that learn from their mistakes and take those insights again and apply them to evolve the product, or even ultimately decide this isn't going to work. But what did I learn over these 3 months of coding and being frustrated? What were the insights? What were the other apps that launched? What did we learn? Let's think of another idea. And eventually, you'll land on something.
And when you look at, so you spoke a little bit about the advantages to working in a large company like Google. When someone who is, let's say, not necessarily interested in founding a company, at least right now, but just they love tech, they want to be a part of this, do you think, I think there is this opportunity to get like a paid education by working at an early stage company. What are some things people should be looking for if they want to take full advantage of this opportunity and actually like find a startup that's going to help them maybe one day start their own?
Yeah, well, I think you have to look at your personal stage, like where you are, where you think you have room for improvement. Align that with what you're excited about, and look at companies in those spaces. Because I can tell you from the other perspective now, like we're hiring for Secret, and we meet with so many different people, and the ones that always inspire us the most are the ones that are in the right phase of their life. It's like the right time for them to join this particular company. So when you're looking for that startup as an employee, you should always work on something that you can grow, right? So even if it's not something you're 100% excited about, but it's a fantastic opportunity to grow as whatever it is that your role might be, do your best and put everything that you have into it, and you'll get the most that you can out of it.
And what are some things that you guys are doing specifically now as you're caught up in the fever of growth to make sure?
What are we doing specifically?
Yeah, like are there particular things, habits or routines?
We try to sleep, but not very successful at that. We realize now that when there's so much incoming interest, whether it's investors, press, hiring, that we need to learn how to focus. And when you're getting pulled in every which direction, we could spend all day in meetings, again, just like working at Google. Just like Google. But what we need to do is really just teach ourselves how to focus. So we started putting like focus blocks on our calendars and saying we're not doing anything during this time, but actually getting work done. We start kind of ranking, what's important of all the people that are reaching out to us. Now we'll only like pick one or two that we really feel like we should talk to. And we've hired people that are very, very good at this, that have taken such a burden off our shoulders. So like hiring the right people is one of our top priorities, and with each one of those hires that we make, it makes our lives 100 times easier.
And now, is this your first? This is not your first South by?
Up here, yes, but before the last time I was here, I think that was with Google. But when you come to South by, when you're with Google, it's not really. It's more of a social event, I think.
Well, so so we got a big night out tonight. What's your best advice to someone here who wants to make the most out of their time left at South by Interactive?
Well, I had a very different experience. So when I had my startup and I came to South by before and we didn't have any traction, I spent most of my time trying to find the best people to talk to, try and make the right connections, because I think a lot of companies actually use this as a recruiting event too, right? Like this is a high concentration of talent, so whether you're trying to hire, whether you're trying to be hired, like I think coming to the talks wasn't something that I did too much personally, but I spent most of my time having meetings, and there's a great opportunity because everyone's here in one place at the same time. So make the best of making connections with the people while they're here. Face-to-face is best.
And lots of people are leaving secrets, right? You got secret.ly/.
Yes. We actually launched secret.ly/Sxsw, and you can kind of see a live feed of what everybody's saying right now in Secret. Mm-hmm. I wonder what they're saying about you right now.
Yeah. Well, do you think then that like there is, especially with a startup like WhatsApp having the exit that it had in the face of a lot of conventional sort of Valley startup founder behavior, right? They were very to themselves. They really were focused on just building an amazing product and growing an amazing business. Do you see this as being a change or sort of a new role model for how tech companies can be run?
Totally. WhatsApp, I was aware of it because we had previously been working on a messaging product, and we saw that WhatsApp was actually as big as text messaging. right? That's huge, but they never really talk about it. They didn't, as far as I know, rub elbows as much in the Valley, and I think that's great because it can be a huge distraction to get involved in that. And when you have a product that you know is working and you see those metrics, the best thing you could do is be in the office, heads down, and continuing to grow that product, right? And I imagine that's exactly what they did, and that's why I caught everybody by surprise when Facebook acquired them for that much.
All right, and so then what's on the horizon? What can we expect next from Secret?
Yeah, well, so when launching Secret about 40 days ago now, just to give you a little backstory for those of you that don't know, we had a closed beta for about 2.5 months, and we had like 100 friends on it. And we just wanted to put something together that people could kind of be open and honest and share everything that they're thinking and feeling without having to attach it to like a permanent profile on the web. And we saw it was really successful with our friends, and we just kind of wanted to sneak it into the App Store so we could get some more friends on it without violating like Apple's rules about how many people you can have on the beta. And then kind of things went out of control, right? It started getting a lot of press, it started growing extremely fast, and now I think we know that Secret, we're onto something very interesting and valuable. So what we're focusing on really is just kind of polishing the product, making sure that everything's working, listening to our users, making sure that all of our policies are in order. There's just a lot of stuff coming at us right now at once. But the long term, what we're really trying to accomplish with Secret is to create a world where we are more open and honest with each other, and therefore more connected. I think the more we hold back from each other, the less we understand each other, and the less we cooperate. So that's really kind of what we're going for in the long run, just to paint like the big picture. But for next steps, like we mentioned it on stage yesterday, we're working on the Android app. Sorry to everyone that has Android phones, we're doing our best. We're also working on launching in other countries and just like getting it out there as much as possible.
Any particularly surprising things? Like have you found? I always get excited when I see a random Secret pop up from like Hanoi, and I'm just like, wow, like it gets that small world feeling. So the location thing, yeah, I was surprised. We sell some for Vietnam. We're only available in the U.S. and Canada. To be honest, when just looking at the beta, we weren't too surprised with the type of things that we're seeing. There's a lot of delight. Like we're in the office, we get a lot of good laughs. There's a lot of heartwarming moments. Like all the secrets that are coming in are just great. Of course, there are issues that we've had with other types of secrets, but on a whole, I think one of the things actually that was really surprising was that I think we had, for like 7 to 10 days, we had 0 dick pics. That was huge. Like we thought, when you're provided with this platform, right, my hunch was nobody wants to send a dick pic to their contacts, right, because it's secrets on your contacts. But we were never sure. A lot of people were like, oh, you're going to get a lot of dick pics, aren't you? Known as the chat roulette problem.
Yeah, exactly. But I think our thesis was correct so far in that people don't do that. There's an occasional inappropriate photo that we have to take down. And these are usually people that don't have friends on it yet, so they're siloed and they're not connected, so nobody ends up seeing it. But that was actually pretty surprising and humbling, and it was good.
Yeah. Well, and so, I think one of the huge advantages YC does is it really focuses founders on just like doing nothing but writing code and getting users for 3 months. There are so many success stories though that never even went through YC. What are the clearest trends you see, whether it's stuff that, in the YC network, friends you've come to know? What are some I like the ability to focus. That's one that I know I struggle with daily. What are some other trends you see successful founders employing and doing or just people that we could be using?
I think the successful founders, when they're in that groove, right, so they're focusing, but I think they're also surrounding themselves with great people. So everything you do, whether it's in the office or socially, it's all tied back to kind of your greater cause. And I think that, I forget whose law it was, but you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I've seen that firsthand as people kind of evolve and change their friend groups, and those particular founders just keep getting better and better, and they get better connections. And it's that sphere of influence around you that's going to help ultimately propel your success, right? Like Alexis, I've known for 5 or 6 years. One of the awesomest dudes, always been super supportive. And So this is like a great example, right? And spending all that time with you, and now we're up here chatting.
Well, and let's stress this too. So I invested in Fligo. I lost money on Fligo.
Sorry about that.
No, but like, you know this, and I'm not saying that to twist the knife. I'm saying that any honest investor knows that. But I bring up that as a point because when you said, hey, I've got this other thing I'm working on now, I was thrilled. I was honored to have the chance to invest.
Yeah, I was pretty nervous when Gary was like, you should talk to Alexis, and I'm like, Alexis is awesome. I hope he doesn't hate me. and then we got on the video call, and you loved it, and I was thrilled. So, yeah, another thing we've really done and we focused on, especially in the midst of this tornado of people trying to invest in our startup, was we want to work with good people, and we want to work with people that we trust and that we know, and I think people need to be very wary of that. If you have a successful startup or not a successful startup, be careful who you take money from. Some people just have the money and they can become a real problem. Some of my friends have had startups where their investors completely just blocked them out. One of them actually got into YC, and this is one of my friends, and he had a previous investor that said, if you go into YC, you already took my money, if you go into YC, I'm going to make sure that you don't succeed, which is like completely against his own interest. But like, you got to just pick good people, whether it's people you're hiring or your investors. Work with people that you trust and are just nice people.
I mean, you hear these horror stories, right? There's that constant battle though, because on the one level, you want to keep the lights on, right? You realize you're beholden to your employees, to your coworkers, to make sure you raise that round of funding. How do you see this shaking out? I mean, I would hope things like AngelList, actually even things like Secret would sort of suss out the good from the bad, the wheat from the chaff. Do you think this is a bigger trend that's happening now with investors, maybe over time having to be less douchebaggy?
Yeah, well, I think it's the overall trend of transparency. As we become all more interconnected on the web, things like AngelList come up where it's really hard to do things in the shadows anymore. Everything will come to light. So I still hear some stories here and there, but I think if you have a good network, a good support network, like people like yourself, and you have all collectively, we can shield each other from that kind of behavior. And like, YC has a blacklist, right? Like if they hear a bad story about some investor, like they won't work with those companies anymore. So I think collaboratively moving forward as we grow in transparency, that hopefully this behavior will recede. But humanity always tends to surprise us.
Yeah, it does. Oh, actually, speaking of which then, what's been your absolute most favorite secret you've seen?
There are so many. Well, so I always go to the one where the first one that I thought like this is going to be an amazing product was someone in my friend group had taken a picture of an old lady being walked by a caretaker or something, a younger lady. And she said, every day I see this old woman walk by and I just want to go up to her, say hi, and ask her about her life. And I thought that was really sweet. And that's when I knew that this could be a place where people can actually share what they're actually feeling and thinking without ridicule and be able to connect with people. So.
Well, it is definitely interesting. I think there's been a big push, YouTube now has Google+. There's been a big push in social media for people to have that identity and to really, choose how we share it, right? Like we choose a filter on Instagram because we want it to look as beautiful as possible. And we choose what we tweet and we choose what we post on Facebook to humble brag about or write about because we want to show a particular type of persona. Perhaps this is a kind of renaissance where we can
totally. I think
candor.
Totally. I think as Facebook has been pushing identity, we're starting to realize some of the pitfalls of that, right? Like the permanence of it, the mixed audience that you're broadcasting to. It has trained us to behave a different way and post things, for the most part, like people try to curate themselves and shape that image when nobody in this room is perfect, right? We all have our issues. We're all the same in that, right? And I think what Secret does is it makes that homogenous. You have everything that you're seeing is really kind of the introvert in everyone, rather than here's the perfect extroverted side of me. And we needed to learn that as a society, and I think that Facebook and like Google Plus really pushing on identity as well has made this opportunity possible, right? And that's what always makes me it makes me realize that no matter what, there will always be room for innovation. There will always be another idea, because as certain ideas grow and become salient and embedded in our culture, it will create new problems to be solved, right? So there will never be a shortage. There will always be a supply.
Never any shortage of problems to solve.
Exactly.
Yeah. A valid
Actually,
point.
Going back to your earlier question, that's what gave me confidence, because I knew that there was always going to be trends either going in a direction, coming together, falling apart, and there would always be some opportunity to solve problems for people.
Well, I really hope whoever wrote that secret is watching this, so that then we can find out if OP will deliver, and she'll finally talk to that woman, ask her about her life. All right, thank you very much. Everyone clap it up for Chris. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
Right on, man.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is the Fire, much safer than the other Fireside alternative. Guys, I have one last slide, and then we have a t-shirt cannon, which I hope you'll enjoy. But before we get to that, I have one more thing. And here's the thing. South by is an amazing, amazing place where so many nerds, we all get to come together, we talk about the stuff we're working on, we talk about the stuff we're passionate about, and it's exciting. And I wager, just out of curiosity, how many of you right now, just by show of hands, are working on something you're really proud of or excited about? Wow, okay, yes, everyone. All right, one of the first hands I saw go up was one of you three ladies. Would one of you mind coming up here to tell everyone what you're working on? Y'all have to clap it up, though. Come on. Come on up here. This was totally unprompted, by the way, in case it wasn't obvious. Hello, I'm Alexis.
I'm Jennifer.
Jennifer, very nice to meet you. Please, Jennifer, tell everyone what you're working on.
Okay. I'm working on a startup called Garden Genie, and my reason for working on it is inspiration from my grandfather. He used to grow all of his own fruit and vegetables, and I gave it a go, and unfortunately, it wasn't as easy as I'd hoped, and I just feel that people should be able to have fresh fruit and vegetables and access to them, and it makes me sad that some people can't eat healthily even though they'd like to. So what Garden Genie does is makes it simple and enjoyable for people to do that.
All right, give them the URL one more time. Tell them when to sign up. Give them the URL one more time.
Oh, it's gardengenie.co. Please go and have a look and sign up.
Awesome. Jennifer, bravo. Here you go.
Thank you very much.
See? Clap. Totally unprompted, all right? Now here's the thing, and I do this, and there are plenty of opportunities at South by to come up and give a pitch, but this is straight up unprompted, all right? And she killed it, and I love it. I've done this at 77 universities, and it's crazy because these college students, almost for the first time, realize their peers among them are working on cool stuff and get up and share it. And you all don't need to be convinced, right? You know there's amazing stuff going on here, but, what I love is invariably the person who puts their hand up first comes up and kills it. Does an amazing job. And what's so cool about this was it was a lesson that I learned in college from a professor who said, listen, every one of us is capable of doing amazing things, but the ones who do are the ones who put their hand up, and they're the ones who are counted, and the ones who get up in front of a bunch of people in a really awkward situation of being handed a microphone and sharing what they're passionate about. So look, you all have things you're passionate about. Please get your hand up. Please speak up on the train. Speak up in the conversation. Talk about those things you're passionate about because it shows. And it's awesome. So thank you for proving that point and making me look so good for picking you randomly out of the crowd. Thank you. All right, and I told you I got one more slide. All right, one more. This is from when video games used to be hard. A long time ago. They used to be hard. When you ran out of lives, the game reset. And one of the things I realized, even as a kid, was that, I played my hardest when there were 0 lives remaining. And unless, notwithstanding resurrection or reincarnation, we all have 0 lives remaining. And so my advice to you is this. Look, we have such an amazing opportunity right now in history and in time. The fact we're even all here at South by in Austin talking about apps and startups gives us, certainly on a global level, but even a national one, a tremendous amount of privilege and, frankly, responsibility. And I was lucky to have amazing people in my life supporting me all along the way. And one of the things I got to realize far too early was how limited life is. My mom was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer 6 months into starting Reddit. And one of the things I got to realize at 22 was that there really are 0 lives remaining. And I was so grateful that I got to call her and tell her we sold Reddit and it was all worth it. And her belief in me was validated. But like I'm saying, I was lucky for a lot of reasons. And one of them was having her as a mom. And so what I'm saying to you is this: we have 0 lives remaining. And this is such an amazing opportunity that we get to be here talking and working and building in one of the greatest industries imaginable. So please take advantage of it. Whatever it is you want to do, whatever it is, whether you're going to IPO in 10 years, create a nonprofit, create something that's going to help us all finally eat well and locally and stuff that we raise, whatever it is, go do it. Be awesome. And then give me the credit, all right? Because I'm going to take it all right? Thank you very much, South by.